Hello and welcome to another episode of WTF with Alan Stevens and Chris Willems and me, Angela Heise. Today we're talking about offloading, and when people sit down or they call you and they just start offloading whatever is on their mind without even wanting to know whether you're available. And so I don't know about you if you've got that sometimes, but people call up and there's one particular person who calls up and within 2 minutes, and even if I say I've only got 5 minutes, it's very hard to disengage because that person has that need to just offload. And it's very hard to say no to somebody who's got that need, who really needs to get something off their chest. But it's so frustrating because how do you put a stop on that when you don't have the time to listen, and the negativity. Oh, it's like you know,
like a tsunami of negative.
exactly.
Yeah, well, it is really hard to bring an end to that courteously and without feeling like you're insulting them. But yeah, they might be insulting you, but when you swap it back around, you don't want to insult them. And it's a bizarre thing that people just don't have. They're so unaware of your time or the circumstances. Yeah, it's really disturbing.
Yeah, it's appropriate times when people can offload and when it's not appropriate. It's like if they've got issues going in their life, they want to talk to somebody. It makes it difficult for us if we haven't pre-organized that for knowing they want to actually share something with us, and we're going to give them that time. But if they just start offloading and that, it's difficult for us as well because we're feeling their emotions. We don't want to feel their emotions. And at the same time, it's difficult to turn around and try and change the subject.
Mm.
So it's something that affects us in all areas. Unless you've got it organised that's what they came to do with you, then you've got an issue.
Yeah.
Well, indeed. Well, I just had an experience recently where someone had organised like essentially a sales call or a follow-up call on the phone, and was booked for half an hour, and 2.5 hours later, he's still trying to sell me stuff. And being a courteous person, I like to think it was really it was I found it really difficult to stop the conversation. In the end, it became offensive because I know I just lied and said, look, I've got another Zoom call in 5 minutes. I have to go. And it just wouldn't let it go, wouldn't let it go, wouldn't let it go. And that's the hard sell kind of techniques. And yeah, it was really, really frustrating.
Yeah, that's where we talk about boundaries, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
And it's about setting them. And we don't really do that because it's, as you said, it's that courtesy that we have to be nice, we have to be available. And I'm all for that. I'm really all in favor of supporting people.
Mm.
It's that almost that taking advantage of that cultural framework where somebody thinks they have the right to do that. I mean, when I work with people, they have that open door policy. Leadership is like anybody can come in at any time, and then they sit in the office until 10 o'clock at night to get the work done that they need to get done. So
It's
I generally say to people, teach the people around you to ask for permission first, and not from the are you available, but from I really would you be available, and then put a time frame around it and say I've got 5 minutes. But a lot of people just don't do that.
No, no. I mean, the other side of that coin, though, is if someone is contacting you and is distressed or whatever, then absolutely, I think
Yeah.
all of us would go, yes, sure, keep talking, because sometimes people need to have that interaction and that kind of support. But when it's just a one-way dump,
Yeah.
then that's a different thing
Yeah.
altogether.
Well, see, in my work, I know that everybody's been insecure or has suffered in some way or another. Everybody wears a mask. Everybody pretends they're not wearing a mask, but we are all a combination of how we've decided to choose to respond to all the events in our life. That means all our childhood rewards and sufferings as well.
Mhm.
So everybody's carrying stuff. So be able to share time with somebody and be able to give them that space to be able to talk is a gift to them, but it's also something that I feel that we can all do. That's why we create the Campfire Project. So that's the place where people can come and do that. If
Yeah.
they want to just talk to me directly, I want them to let me know, why they're calling. What can I do for them? Because when somebody usually comes to you and that first thing you ask them is, well, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And if they say, well, look, it's the way in which they address it, they just start dumping. That's a problem. But if they said to you, look, I've got something going on, would it be all right if I talk, have a chat with you about it because I'd like some ideas? Then okay. You can then say, oh, I've got this amount of time, or I haven't really got the time right now, But if what about tomorrow at this particular time? Would that be okay? Is it that urgent to talk now, or can you wait a little bit?
Yeah.
And so, as you said, Angela, putting those boundaries in place, respecting yourself, but it's also we want to be able to look after the people around us. Because we've had enough on social media of people just being there for themselves and giving everybody else a hard time.
Yeah.
Well, that's right, and you touched on there. People we care about, we will give them time, whatever time they need. People we don't know, or even if people we know a bit, who take advantage of our good nature and just assume that you're always there for them for however long they need you to be there. It's a big difference.
Good point. And that's the thing. If somebody really needs me to listen, I'll put everything aside. I'll be there for them, and I'll cancel the next appointment if I have to. But if somebody does it habitually, because that's just an automatic response, like somebody asks how are you? Or, they call up because I call that the internal toxin vat has just filled up to the brim and they just need to get rid of it. Then I will have a conversation with them about it and say, look, and especially if it's not urgent. My favorite is when somebody says, I really need to talk to you about this. This is so important. And then I talk to them and it's like, no, it's really not. It's just habitual churning of, of frustrations and things that have accumulated over time because they go from one to the next. It's not just one thing. Like when somebody has a need, that it's one thing that really bothers them. But if somebody goes, and then there was that, and then there was that, and then they did this, and then they did that, and it's like, oh, you really need to detox more often.
I think you
Seriously.
need to ask ourselves when that person says that, comes on and starts talking, that what's the purpose for them? Is this something they do regularly? See, I used to be a lifelong counsellor, and the very first night that I did an overnight job, first day I actually was a counsellor. The next morning I was being debriefed, and I gave them information, all the sheets that we put together for each person. We never knew anybody's name, but I told them about this one woman. They said, oh, that's Mary. And I said, what are you talking about? We don't have names. She said, oh, those files over there. And they were ring binders 3 inches wide on the spine. And they were folders that were dedicated to one person, each folder, one person. That many sheets, they've been calling the same time like this woman was every Thursday night she would call, and she'd been doing it for years. Same story over and over. So I always ask myself, okay, is this person looking to just vent, or are they looking if they're asking me for support, do they really want comments from me? Or do they just need some eyes and ears to listen to them and see them? But what's the outcome going to be for them? Well, I'm not going to support them regurgitating a problem that anchors them further into that problem.
But that's the point, isn't it? Do they actually, as you say, Alan, do they want support, or is it just a one-way thing? And if they want support, I'm sure we would all sit and listen and offer whatever support we can. But if it's habitual, as you say, Angela, if it's just habitual and the latest dump for the late on the Thursday or whatever, then that's not acceptable. And as you say, we need to set those boundaries, as difficult as that can be sometimes.
Yeah.
So sometimes you might be at a party and somebody walks up to you and starts telling you their life story and telling you all the woes and problems that they're having. Not the appropriate place.
No.
That's why I realized everybody needs somebody to talk to at some point in their lives. And that's why we create the Campfire Project, so people can come in and have those conversations. And here's a place designed for that. So we expect people to come in and tell their stories and get it all out off their chest, but not on a business call, for instance.
No.
So it's, again, having those locations, as you said, Angela, having those boundaries and put in place. So we're to manage that ourselves before the other person even comes to us.
Yeah. And I think the other important thing is, and this is I'm really clear on that. Do not go to the same person over and over again.
No.
Because I think this is what the issue that I have with this person, because I think because I'm such a safe space, like they know that I will listen, because that's so important to me. But I had a client once, and I taught them how to detox throughout the day instead of building it up. And so when they came home at night, they would be this whole, honey, I'm home. And then they would basically dump everything that had happened during the day on their partner. So when I told them, and we taught them how to detox throughout the day by having these small conversations about this is what's frustrating me, And they came home and they didn't do that anymore. They noticed that their partner, when they came in and said, "Hi, I'm home," would go like this.
Waiting for it.
Waiting for it. They literally braced themselves, and they
Yeah.
asked. They said, "So I noticed you doing this. Yeah, I'm bracing myself for the onslaught of negativity."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it changed the marriage.
Yeah.
Not doing that anymore.
I know of my background's Dutch, and I know of a psychiatrist who refuses to treat Dutch people because they're so negative.
Well, this is where we can go into who are the better negative people, the Germans or the Dutch, or the Austrians, or anybody of that area, because
Indeed, yes.
yeah.
I think that conversation might push a few buttons out there, but yeah. WTF.
Yeah, and there'll be there will be a competition. Who's the best negative?
Who's the most negative? Capital negative.
See how many line up to win.
Well, on that note, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Chris. Let's continue to build bridges of respect, one conversation at a time. Please join us next time.